For my information technology class, I created a Google Classroom based on dramatic literature since my primary licensure will be in English and my secondary licensure will be in theater. You can tell that my Google Classroom is a secure website because of the S in the URL. In order to add someone to your Google Classroom, you can do one of two things. You can click on People and then add using this plus sign right here. Type in any old name. Here's my friend Sarah. Or a student can add themselves to your class by going to the Google Classroom page and hitting this plus sign. In order to do this, they need the class code, which is on your page. Here's mine. On my Google Classroom homepage, I have a little welcome message and a welcome letter that also gets emailed out to parents. In it, I talk a little bit about who I am and where I went to school, and also expectations that I have about the class and what students can expect to see in the class. On my classwork page, there are a number of posts and assignments that I added throughout the semester. Some things, like my classroom procedures Google slide, are things that I would have originally shown in class and put on the website as a reminder. This has, my expectations for the formatting of assignments, different policies that I have, questions and answers that came up in class, etc., etc. My first assignment in information technology, and the first thing I would ask my students to do, is this student interest survey that I created on Google Forms. It's very easy. It just has a couple of questions to help me get to know my students better. They fill it out and submit it, and helps me get a better idea of who they are as people and as students. The first big assignment that my students would have to complete is a 10-minute lesson I created called Pop Song Sonnets. I have a screencast where I explain both what they're learning and also what I expect them to do as an assessment. One of the things that they had to do as a formative assessment was to complete a Kahoot challenge, asking them questions about what a sonnet was, different forms and rhyming structures, all of that. I had actually never made a Google slide prior to this class, and now it's the primary way that I organize information when I'm creating a new lesson. Here is the Google slide that I created for Pop Song Sonnets. Here's where we started out with our Kahoot quiz, summed up the information in writing, and put my learning expectations and our standards. I thought it was really important to pair words and the sound of my voice, both for students that have trouble with auditory processing and for my ELL students. So the assignment was to write a sonnet based on a modern song. For my example, I took a song that I knew the students would know, Juice by Lizzo, and I wrote one verse of a sonnet, ending with a rhyming couplet. When the students were done, they were supposed to post their video to Flipgrid. I wanted to give them an experience of performing it, since this is both a theater and English class. I also had some videos and a link with more examples that they could go to if they needed more ideas. In my opinion, the major strength of this lesson is that it helps students connect to Shakespeare and to an older form of writing in a way that they probably never have before. Normally, one of the biggest turnoffs for students about Shakespeare is how dense and complicated the language is. So by taking something that they already understand and like and having to transform it into that language, I think it makes it more accessible and more interesting. For my second 10-minute lesson, I wanted to try to use a few more things that I had learned in this class and a few more options on Google Classroom. So I started with the same kind of concept. I have a Google slide, which is also set up in the exact same format as the first one. My idea is to use this format, same, heading and everything, also the same goals in the same place. On some of them we have, very clearly what you're supposed to do tomorrow, and then in a list. I think that if you maintain the same structure in these assignments, they'll know what they're looking for, and it'll be easier for them to process new information. So I did this, and then I did a screencast explaining what the expectations were and providing a little bit more background information. But I also had a few different kinds of assessments. Under the Assignment 3 August Wilson heading, there is a question. What do you think of when you hear the word fences? Students were asked to time themselves and free write for 1 minute. When I click on the question, I can see how some of my students decided to answer it. I have 3 different submissions here. This gave me an idea of what their associations with the word was, and hopefully gave the students an opportunity to really free associate and see where their mind took them. Since Fences is the name of the play that they'll be reading next, the next question is, now that we've thought about this word, what are some inferences we can make as to what we're going to hear about in the play? Students then watched these videos, which gave them more information both about the play and about August Wilson, the playwright. And with their new information, I wanted them to make a bookmark that they could then use while reading the play. On that bookmark, they're supposed to write 3 questions that they have about the play that they think will be answered in the text. That way, while they're using their bookmark, they can reflect on these questions and use it to further their reading comprehension. I wanted them to take a picture of their bookmark and upload it onto Google Classroom. I also gave them the option to just email me the questions if they were having trouble figuring out the technology. When I click on the bookmark assignment, I can see who's turned in the assignment, and I can also see the ones that I've already graded. For this submission, I really thought the questions were broad enough to provoke a lot of thought, but obviously the student knows what they're looking for when they analyze a text. They got a 5 out of 5, and I sent them these comments right here. This student gave a 4 out of 5 because even though I loved his bookmark and loved the visual, some of his questions were questions that I don't believe can be answered while reading the text. So I told him that these were great questions to ask, but some of them might require outside research. And I encouraged him to instead think of questions that were more likely to be answered while reading Fences. Before taking this class, I was very wary about using technology in the classroom, mostly because I didn't understand the benefit of it, how it could be used effectively, and why it was any better than traditional classroom learning. Now that I've taken this class, I can see a lot of opportunity, not to replace the work that I'm doing in class, but to expand on it and to go deeper. It makes it easier to connect with students who, for whatever reason, aren't able to attend class. It also makes it easier to connect with parents. It makes it easier to reinforce learning by posting things that you covered in class online so they can review it in their own time. You can post supplemental materials that you didn't have a chance to get to in class. You can post follow-up questions that will either review information that they learned in a previous class or will prep them for the next day. There are also different kinds of assignments that I was able to do with Flipgrid, with Google Form, with just our different discussion boards here. They would be not as interesting or even not possible to do in a traditional classroom setting. Overall, I think I took a lot of different skills from this class that I will use in my future classroom.